it originally started, I really wanted to play basketball. I was a high school basketball player, and I had an interest in criminal justice at the same time. So when I decided to go to college, and I didn't apply to a lot of different colleges. I narrowed my focus because of the criminal justice program. It was so, it was already a name brand in '79 when I graduated from high school. And along with the size of the school, the chance that I thought I would have to play basketball here. But as they say, you can't coach height. And law enforcement became my calling, and the criminal justice program here at Ferris was my calling. I think the uniqueness of the program I was in, and my understanding is a lot of the other programs when I hear are the same thing, whether it's a criminal justice or whether it's a pharmacy program. It's a practical program, and that's the reason I came here. I knew coming out of Ferris that I was ready to hit the workforce, and I could hit the workforce running. I didn't have to go to another police academy. That's built into the criminal justice program here at Ferris. And I think it was the quality of the faculty, to the sense that, I looked on the board when I got here today, and look, it's been 30 years. I look on the board and I see, Professor Nurbin's, name still there. He was my teacher, when I was here, and he came. Him and a number of others that are no longer here, but I think still work part-time with the university or consult, came from the field in which they were teaching. In other words, they had practical experience, and I would tell you. You need practical experience. You can get all the degrees you want, and I know everybody goes, we get the masters and we get the PhDs, but having worked in state and local law enforcement, having worked in the federal government at all levels, up to the White House and Congress and everywhere else, the degrees are great. There's a value added in that, but you cannot move things and get things done without practical experience, and I think that's what Ferris does. You can get your education, you can get the master's degrees, everything else, but most importantly, you get actual practical experience from people that have been there, done that, and that stay in touch with what's current. It's different. You don't go from running an organization with 36,000 employees and a $10 billion budget to going right into the private sector and I'm not running a major organization. I'm vice president of corporate compliance for a organization called McAndrews and Forbes Holdings. It's owned by Ronald Perlman in New York City, and we own a number of companies. It stems from educational companies to entertainment companies. We own Deluxe Entertainment, AM General, the Humvee maker. We have just a diverse holding of companies under McAndrews and Forbes Holdings, and I do corporate compliance, working with all those different companies. In other words, protecting the brand name, ethics, financial, looking at emerging markets and the risk in operating in Russia or China, cybersecurity, which is big, both not only in government but in the private sector as well. So, I like to say that my job there is really not much different in the Bureau, in that my job, if you look at the mission, and the mission is to guard against, understand, and solve problems wherever and whenever they occur. That's really what my mission is, even in the private sector, for the owner of McAndrews and Forbes Holdings and all the companies that he owns personally, and some of them are publicly traded as well. But that's my job there as well. It's just I don't have the responsibility and the burden of having to be a law enforcement intelligence community worldwide. I don't have 36,000 employees or a $10 billion budget. I think a transferable set from what they teach you even here at Ferris 30 years ago, and what individuals in the law enforcement and reactive type professions have, and that's decision-making ability. Rapid decision-making availability on a moment's notice. Not analyzing it, not paralysis by analysis, making sure, not meetings after meetings after meetings, which happens in government a lot. So I think that is the most probably transferable, and that's what they teach you here at Ferris. You go to the criminal justice program here. They're going to teach you decision making. They're going to lay all the practical experience, but when you get there, you have to make moment to moment decisions. I also went out. I took when I was at Ferris here, when I was a freshman, I actually took flying lessons here too. I started my flying career. I ended up finishing not here but in the Bureau, and I became a pilot. And those two go together as well. Pilots need to make quick second decisions at a moment's notice. So I think those go together. I think those are transferable skills from the public sector to the private sector. You need to make decisions, and they have to be well thought out, but you need to make them quickly. I have a responsibility. I think that responsibility lies when you spend as much time as I have and others before me and will after me in the field in which we're in. I felt a tremendous amount of responsibility when I was in the organization, whether it was the state and local law enforcement or the FBI, as a leader, to give back to the employees and to help them get the things they need. I think now that I'm retired, I'm in a second career. I work between Washington and New York City. Now I have the time, and now I have responsibility, I think, to Ferris, to the students of Ferris, to people that are going to follow after us, that are going to be in this fight for many years, whether it's upholding civil rights, civil liberties, and the rule of law. I frequently, when I used to talk to our graduating agents in Quantico, if the director doesn't do the graduation, the deputy director does the graduation, is we'd focus on those things that agents, state and local law enforcement, intelligence officers, people will say that they're often the first line of defense in America, right? I think that's true, but they're also, the emphasis I have is that they're the last line of defense. That the first line to help people, protect people, keep them safe, but if they don't do that without upholding civil rights, civil liberties, and the rule of law of this country, it's going to have a devastating effect, not on this country, but on the world. Because people look to us. You get a worldview when you're in the FBI and you're in the United States government, you're working overseas and traveling the world. You get a worldview of what's really going on. I have a responsibility now that I've left to pass that message on, to keep people motivated to get into this type of work, because I think it's extremely important, not only for our democracy, but for democracies around the world. I think the biggest thing is what I'm trying to do at this point. Not only am I still engaged with what's happening in government, but getting out to Ferris, getting out to some other locations, speaking on behalf of what's going on today in this environment. I think that's the effort where you get involved, and it's not about having this laissez-faire attitude that someone else is going to take care of it, but it's about being able, you can influence things. You can get in the right positions, and you can push from almost any level. We have a saying in the FBI that we started a couple of years ago. We started a huge leadership development program, not just for the leaders of the FBI, for every employee, 36,000 employees. And it's called Lead Where You Stand. And it's about, you don't have to be in a management position or a leadership position. You can be a student here at Ferris, right? Take an extreme example, the Occupy movement. They're leading in some form or fashion, right? Whether you agree with it or disagree with it, they're leading, and they're trying to influence and make change. That's what it's about, and I think that's what we have to push. Alumni here, alumni of the FBI, they need to stay and continue engaged, and we have networks to do that, to continue to influence. Because what I'm finding, being even out in the private sector from government, is although I controlled a lot and influenced a lot, there was still some difficulty in getting it done with the size of the United States government and all the different agencies you have to work with in the intelligence community or law enforcement community. You have great influence on the outside as well. Sometimes in many forms, even more powerful, because of the private sector connections that have other government connections. So I'm finding myself to be somewhat more effective in many areas, having left government, than even when I was in government. So I think it does pay, but you have to have the passion. It has to be in you in order to do this. You've got to really believe that you're going to influence change, and you're going to fail a lot. If you go out and ask any of these great people that have left Ferris and that are business leaders and everything else, how many times did they fail? Well, they do it, but they had a passion to do something. It's no different. Just have a passion for understanding what the fight is for our democracy, and understand that you can influence and do great things, whether you're a street cop or whether you're an executive, whether you're chief of the police. So. I also caution people to reflect too. I didn't reflect as much as I should have, talking to a lot of the different mentors and people we have to help us in their careers and talk about things. They need to take time, people need to take time to reflect more on where they're at, what they're doing, whether they're successful, whether they're not successful, and understand why. And then see, are there things that they could do different? Not changing your personality, not changing who you are, but maybe there's things you could do differently And if you reach down and dig down deep, I think you'll find those things, and you'll be successful. Well, I know if you have an interest in law enforcement, if you have an interest in criminal justice, and you're getting your start, I think there's no better place to start but Ferris. And it goes back to my original answer when I was asked a question earlier, and I talked about the practical experience that you're able to gain, both from the faculty, who a majority have been there and done that. They've been in a police department, they've been in law enforcement, they've been in corrections, and I think what you get at Ferris is that practical experience. And that's why, if you're looking for a successful career in criminal justice, in law enforcement, and even in the larger intelligence community, because they're starting at a federal level and in a global level, you're starting to get this merge of law enforcement intelligence operations. There's no better place, I think, and I think it was deeply valuable for me to get my start here at Ferris due to the practical experience you obtain, not only from the faculty, but also in the coursework, the training, the certification you get here, the law enforcement certification you get here, and that's why I would attend Ferris.